Hey, so I want to talk about something that has been taking place for centuries, and that is the habitual criminal nature of of uh, of breaking agreements and treaties. Uh, what the U.S. and the Western world has been doing is making treaties, making agreements, and then breaking them unilaterally, meaning basically, oh yeah, we don't want to do that anymore, so we're gonna break it, and you're gonna do you're gonna give us everything we want, and we don't really give a flying fuck what you think, okay? And if you want to contest it, if you want to fight us for it, then we'll use every violent measure we can to force you to do that. And doesn't matter how much you suffer, where you'll just kind of have to live with it. And if we want to go in and rape your women, kill your children, if you destroy your environment, your lands, take away any of the so-called human rights, uh, we can and we will, and you just kind of have to eat it. And so, learning about this, I've come to see that it is habitual. They do this constantly. Every treaty that the U.S. made with the indigenous well, not just the U.S. but in Canada, uh, in the colonized, conquered uh, Central and South America, and even in Mexico. Basically, all of the Americas, when it becomes inconvenient and they want something, they'll go and do whatever. And so as again, the American indigenous, the U.S. American indigenous, every treaty they've made has been broken. Every single one of them. Every single, there is no, and this is a fact, not fiction. And what you learn in social studies or history in your when you're going to school through from kindergarten to high school, it's all fantasy. It's all lies. It's all complete and utter garbage. Um, yeah, Canada has done the exact same thing. The newest example is the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal, right? They broke that, and now they are demanding even more, even though Iran was keeping its own, keeping up with its own side of the deal, right? This is this is what it comes down to. You know, uh, a lot of people don't know that Hawaii was a country, and that basically white white corporate sugar and fruit plantation owners that were pineapples, bananas, sugar, and all. Uh, uh, Decided that uh, who had been accepted into Hawaii as citizens, decided they wanted even more. They wanted more lands. They wanted more ability to exploit the indigenous, have more control. So what do? They go to the United States, right, and say, "Hey, we want you to send the military to annex Hawaii," and that's exactly what happened. You know, everybody that's not white is an ignorant savage, except Hawaii. actually were more than 100 years before, actually created self-replicating fish farms out in the ocean. They cleverly use these nets that fish would swim through, but when they got too big, they couldn't escape. And so that and their agricultural processes, the one they when they use, Hawaii was food tolerant. They had the people were healthy. They were slim and athletic. Now there's an epidemic of obesity and diabetes in Hawaii. I forget there's another small Polynesian island. It's like 5 or 6 square miles, and their population was the same. Slim, athletic people, and now there's an epidemic of obesity and diabetes over there. Why? Because it's been the healthy way they were sustaining themselves was taken over by spam and all these processed and high amounts of additives and a lot of toxic other residues that get put in. This is what the U.S. and Western world is, and the thing is we have even in the United States and in Canada and elsewhere, obesity and diabetes and other things like autism and birth defects, and they're all increasing. They're all increasing. You know, there's research, analysis, and statistics that prove that the people that you think you elect, that you think are supposed to represent you, don't listen to you. What you say, what you protest, what you petition, what you do, it doesn't matter. They don't care. They serve themselves and they serve those who control capital. The ones that are so-called captains of industry, the ones that own the means of production, which means they own the lands, the people, the everything. So, if we continue not to be forceful in pushing back, in making sure that they understand that there are consequences we pay, but they don't. It's in every one of these rules, statutes, laws, regulations that we are forced to pay, but they break them habitually. And by the way, I'm not just talking about the people that are in so-called offices or those that work for the government. I'm talking about the corporations, these wealthy people who have this mentality of Wild West, because that's basically what the Western world is. Okay, for the ruling class, the ones that own the means, the ones that control the money and finances, their mentality is Wild West, which is nothing more than this neo-capital feudalism. The old days of feudalism where the monarchs and nobles could do basically anything. And but at least they controlled themselves enough so that the ones that they called their armies and their guards, uh, there was enough of them to call in to protect them, to enforce their rule. Neo-feudal capitalism is nothing, is exactly like that. There has been no change. You always need to sustain enough of the population to give, to put up with and give support to their rule, and that's what we in the West live in. And it's nothing more than the Wild Wild West, where these cowboys could come up and say, "Hey, we want your cattle, we want your house, we want your women, we want your children," and they do it at a point of with a point of a gun, willing to use all sorts of violence. If we kill you, you can't fight back. And why was it so prolific? Because even then, back then, the sheriffs and everything else, they were either cowards, incompetent, or in it themselves. Why was it so widespread? Why was the military not able to take that out? Why? Because they were part of it. That is a system that you live in, the system which you contribute with your labor and efforts, with your acceptance of their financial and monetary controls, in your joining and subjugation under their military rule when you go into the military, in the acceptance way if you're a police or judge or DA, and how you it's a class war. There is one class that matters, and that is the class of the owner class, the ruling class. If you think that the geopolitical crime spree that they do in causing wars and destabilization and destruction and murder and pillaging and plundering does not affect you, you are wrong. What's happening in Ukraine, which is actually a fight, is the instigated fight with Russia, okay, which is what they're trying to do, what they're trying and already ramping up with China, does not affect you. You are wrong. You are wrong. The example of that shooter in Buffalo is a prime example. The astronomical rising cost, which is bleeding you of your money and finances, is just another example. Sanctions is war. It's economic terrorism. It doesn't affect the people who already have the money, and those in positions of government already have money. They already have the stable security. It is the people who do the work, who do the intellectual aspects and all that, who come up with it, that you all get hurt. Inflation is not a new thing, because we've been having inflation the entirety of the history of the United States. Costs have always gone up. The idea that raising the minimum wage will solve being able to have enough money to sustain yourselves with basic needs is just wrong. Why? We already know that when that happens, that they're going to raise the owner class and the means of production are going to raise the cost. That's inflation. But the context is that uh, is that they were already pricing things higher, but not giving you the ability to have a sustainable life. And the period where there was an illusion of sustainability, illusion of getting ahead, right? So you can put a little bit more in. That has been the illusion. They allow that because these people aren't stupid. They allow it for a period, right? And then they come back. Because at that point, the costs have gone to a point where their profits are much higher, right? Much, much higher. Because they're not just making it from sales. Because they're bleeding, they've always been bleeding the taxpayers through the treasury, through the monetary and fiscal control. They've always been bleeding. So when they stockpile all that, what did they do? They increase their hold, their power, their influence with the policymakers, the lawmakers, with the enforcers, which is the police and the intelligence state. That's how they do it. That's why you have inflation, because the costs aren't controlled, because we have no control, we have no representation, there is no democracy. That's how it works. In feudal times, they did the exact same thing. And this is why learning about history, about real history, and not getting the fixed narrative which conditions and indoctrinates you into ignorance, which is killing you, not just in every way, shape, or form. It's making you, it's driving you to be ideologically violent against fellow people in the community who don't look like you. Why? Because you've been conditioned and indoctrinated. Because this idea of power through strength rather than power through community solidarity. And that it is the contribution of everybody that brings us forward and gives us stable security that allows us more time to be with our families, to be able to invest into our dreams and aspirations. And I'm not talking about being famous or being a sex symbol or being a superstar athlete or writing a book. I'm not. Those aren't what I'm talking about. I'm talking about dreams and aspirations that fulfill us, that gives us purpose, that makes us wake up and say, I'm glad that there's a new day, and I'm looking forward to it. That gives us contentment. I'm not talking about happiness. There's a lot of ideological fantasy, stupidity in the very broad thing that happiness is supposed to represent. And and the thing is in the system, happiness, freedom, liberty, and all that other nonsense is basically condition and indoctrination of ignorance. There's just too much in there that doesn't have substance. Contentment is substance. If you're content, that means you're going to be happy anyways. Biologically, emotionally, mentally. We need to see contentment. And within contentment, we also get the will and the drive to seek out further stability, further security, further contentment, because it inspires us to do more. It makes us proactive. It promotes our wanting to be proactive, to be problem solvers, rather than tackling the problem after the fact. That is where progress, that is where stability, that is where community and solidarity come together. That's where depression and despondency and all that other stuff doesn't play, almost virtually will be eliminated. That's the type of society we could always have had. We've been told over and over and over that utopianism is somehow evil. Somehow, you're stupid, that you're insane, that you're not responsible. We've been told that we got to work hard. You know what working hard has done for me? It hasn't given me much of anything. It's destroyed my shoulders, destroyed my knees. I have constant aching and hurting and physical stress. That's from working hard. I'm not against work. I'm not against work or effort, but I'm against doing it to the point where your physical, emotional, or mental is destroyed. That's why we have an epidemic of drug use and deaths. That's why we have an epidemic of obesity. That's why we have an epidemic of diabetes. That's why we have an epidemic of depression. That's why we have an epidemic of cancers and birth defects and autism and all that other stuff. That's why our natural world, we're losing billions of animal, plant, and even on the micro level. That's why the environment is collapsing. That's why the whole global climatic system is collapsing. That's why we have so many damn wars, and that's why we're the ones going to war and fighting for their immediate increase in material and lands and control and people. That that old saying of cannon fodder. We're all cannon fodder under this. Whether you're and the thing is the U.S. and West have always been the aggressors. Always. They've always been untrustworthy. They've always had that mentality of wild, wild west. Whoever has the most power and the most in money and material and everything else are the winners. That's not a society that's sustainable, that progresses. You can't have wokeism in such a society because it all boils down to we all fight and compete while they sit back and collect all the stuff that we're supposedly competing and fighting for. That makes no sense. That makes no sense. You want to eliminate fighting, you want to eliminate competition, okay? And have sustainable, progressive, and progressing forward, where relationships become so much easier and more meaningful, where dreams and aspirations become so much meaningful and purposeful, then we need to start attacking forcefully these high criminals. We have to start breaking down the indoctrination and conditioning. We have to understand that if you talk about community and you talk about love and solidarity and freedom and liberty and everything else, you can't